Welcome to the October 1st Select Board meeting. Excuse us for the delay, we had a technical delay. And if you could join us. Oh, and we are being recorded. If you could please join us, if you can, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we will start with public comments. Is there, what, you see somebody? Okay, not seeing any. We will move to the town administrator's report.
Sure, thank you, Mary Ellen. So,
Welcome, Sean.
it's a busy fall. We started with our major work on the Marshall Street outfall for our sewer improvements. This is the project that will help sleeve the sewer lines and help address infiltration and inflow. We've hired Grenice & Company to help advance that work. Gino Cresta and I, along with Kleinfelder staff last week, met with the construction team and went through a pre-construction meeting. They will be doing the laterals. These are the private laterals that go from people's homes to the public sewer. This is a project that will have a certain scope of work right around the Fisherman's Beach area. We expect that this will significantly address some of the I&I. There's detailed notes of the project team meeting. We have press releases and flyers that will be dropped to the neighbors so that they'll know when to expect the work. We had a wonderful Essex National Heritage Tour of Town Hall. It's great to remind ourselves that we have such a historic property. Elihu Thompson was one of our greatest engineers. The town bought the building from Elihu Thompson, and every year we have folks come from around Essex County to tour the property. Pleased to announce that we have sent conditional offers to 3 firefighters. These are outstanding candidates. We interviewed 8 firefighters. They all were impressive. If we could have hired them all, we would have. We have a remaining 5 candidates that were not selected, but certainly going to keep them on our list. Our senior center is promoting our Forget Me Not campaign by holding 2 trainings monthly, one via Teams and one in person. If you would like to participate, please reach out to our senior center. Hosting a series of events on housing. I want to thank board members for heading down and working with Sea Glass Village to talk about home health care. We've also reached out to a number of regional all ages groups, including Salem and Marblehead, to conduct a study of how they're supporting all ages. We do have researchers in from Australia here next week. They're here to study how Swampscott is bringing intergenerational groups together. So if any of our select board members are around and want to have a sister community in Australia, that certainly should be a possibility. Please get your flu shot if you're 65 years or older, or if you're a public official. We are all around a lot of people, and so please reach out to Diane if you'd like to sign up for a flu shot at Town Hall. We are going to have our first ever pumpkin smash on November 3rd. Don't throw your pumpkins away. Get it out of our solid waste stream. It's heavy, costs us money. Bring them down and smash them. Get your kids out and have some fun. I want to thank our solid waste committee. They've been doing a lot of trash talking, and they're coming up with some great community events to help reduce our solid waste tonnage, and that's all good fun.
Did you say where that is, Sean?
That is going to be at the parking lot by the football field down at Bloxage, so easily accessible and loads of fun. So, our Veterans Services Department is very busy. We're working on our Veteran Service Heroes Meal Program with the Greater Boston Food Bank, Military Foundation. We served over 50 veterans and their families on 9/11 as part of the monthly food market. Certainly, been busy with the monthly coffees and pastries We are looking to get pictures of our hometown heroes banner. If you have a loved one or that's a veteran from Swampscott, please send your pictures in. We're going to get banners and fly them around town for Veterans Day. We do have weekly Veteran Services Office Thursday from 11 to 1 p.m. at the Senior Center, so feel free to bring these pictures down on Thursday at the Senior Center. Recreation has some events, including our classic By the Sea car show on Sunday, October 13th. So if you like cars, come down and check out all the cars at Town Hall. My report.
Does anybody have any questions? I just have one, actually, request. Under the senior center, so we have two residents in town. We have the Marriott, not Marriott, oh, it's so nice, I call it the Marriott, but it's called the Residence Inn, and the Bertram House. Is it possible to get staff from the senior center over to just go over and give them an update and to see if we can engage with them on
Absolutely
activities?
possible. We've done it in the past, Mary Ellen. We've actually gone to the Housing Authority. There's a couple of other properties in town, too, that we know we have cohorts of seniors, so great idea. And certainly, we'll schedule a few of those meet and greets
Okay, that'd be great.
over the next couple of months.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions? All right, so seeing no other questions, we can move along on our agenda to new and old business. How about if we read, under number 1, reading of the proclamation for Indigenous people. Would anybody like to read the proclamation? Go around the room.
Be happy to, if you want.
You
Want
want
to
to
go
read
back
it?
and forth, David?
Huh?
Want to
Did
go
you-
back and forth?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Whereas, instead of commemorating conquests today here in the town of Swampscott, we recognize our history. And since time immemorial, people indigenous to the lands we now call Swampscott built communities, fostered cultures, and stewarded the land of sustainability. And
Whereas, for the first time in our town's history, we recognize Indigenous people here and anywhere in the United States as we pay respect to the cultures and populations that existed long before European contact with this land. So, too, we celebrate the contributions of all Indigenous peoples to the culture of diversity, innovation, and resilience that has had an indelible impact on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And
whereas the town of Swampscott recognizes that the indigenous people of the lands, later known as the Americas, have lived on these lands since time immemorial, and we honor the fact that Swampscott has been built upon the traditional and ancestral homes of Native Americans, referred to as Nammenkegs, and called Swampscott the land of the Red Rock. And
whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations-sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. And
whereas the town of Swampscott is committed to protecting and advocating for justice, human rights, and the dignity of all people who live, work, and visit our community, and to supporting the principles contained in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, endorsed by the United States on December 16, 2010. And
whereas the Declaration of Human Rights recognizes the right of Indigenous peoples to the dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, histories, and aspirations, which shall be appropriately reflected in education and public information, and places an obligation to take effective measures in consultation and cooperation with the Indigenous peoples concerned to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination, and to promote tolerance, understanding, and good relations among Indigenous peoples and all other segments of society. And
now, therefore, on behalf of the entire Select Board, we do hereby proclaim October 14th, 2024 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts, and encourage all faith-based and nonprofit organizations, residents, businesses, and public institutions to acknowledge, honor, and value and celebrate Indigenous peoples' historic and current contributions locally and beyond, while also recognizing the ongoing and interconnected struggles of all Indigenous communities locally and beyond.
in witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts. this first day of October 2024, Swampscott Select Board.
Very good. Okay. So now we will move to the highlight of our evening. We have, Senator Crichton and Representative Armini with us here tonight. This is your second visit to us, correct?
Correct.
So we wanted to take this opportunity to let the senator and the representative fill the community in on all the wonderful things that you have done for this community and the wonderful things you will be doing for this community.
Thank you for laying pretty big expectations for us here tonight. No, in full sincerity, we appreciate being invited here tonight. It's not often that we get to come before local government to talk about what we're doing and to hear from you and to learn. So we do appreciate you taking time out of your busy agenda. I think I mentioned last time when I was here that I had the honor of serving 6 years on the Lynn City Council and recognize how difficult the job is in local government. You're where the rubber hits the road, and it's really difficult. You have difficult decisions that you're feeling the pain directly here on as residents here, but as local officials. So we thank you. We thank you for being tremendous partners to us on Beacon Hill and making sure that we're aware of what's going on locally. I also wanted to say at the outset, congratulations. Today we were with the governor, Lieutenant Governor, Secretary Augustus, as well as the Attorney General, recognizing the 75 communities that are now in MBTA compliance, MBTA community compliance, and just no easy feat. I will confess that I was the sponsor of the legislation as well as the amendment that passed. We gave a great deal of leeway to Swampscott's own governor, or Swampscott's own Charlie Baker, then the governor, to come up with the regulations, and he signed it into law, which I wasn't certain of the time, and he was pretty ambitious with his proposals as well as Secretary Keneally. So I think obviously there's a lot of controversy around it, but there are communities that have been willing to roll up their sleeves, put in the really hard work, communicate effectively with the constituents, but also just recognize the need and the crisis that we're facing across the state, where families can no longer afford to live here. People are leaving the state because they can't afford to buy or rent here. Seniors aren't able to age in their own communities, and our young people aren't able to settle down and start a family. So you were recognized today, and as part of that recognition, thankfully, there was an additional grant program announced. And thank you, Jenny, for putting down the notes. I'll let you lay out what this does, but the MBTA's Communities Catalyst Fund.
Sorry for my handwriting.
So it's new to us. That's why we have these notes here. But when Jenny jumps in, she'll explain a little bit more there. We, as a legislature, I think, have unfinished business typically after July 31st of our second year in session. We've kind of wrapped up on things, but that hasn't been the case this year. While we got a lot done, including on housing, the biggest housing bond bill, making investments not only in production of all kinds, but also in our public housing, which has been done to this level ever. We have an economic development bill that we're still working on. Right now I'm chairing a conference committee on substance use disorder. We have a number of other pieces of unfinished business that would love to come back at the end of session and report back to you on. One big item that we continue to talk, obviously with the town of Swampscott on, is all the issues that we face at Kings Beach. Obviously this has been discussed at length here and everywhere to this point, but I just come back to, again, thank you for your partnership. I think we have a commitment now in the support of the administration to move forward and to further look into UV treatment, along with other alternatives as well. But for a while, I think there was a reluctance there to fully embrace it. And at this point now, they're helping us coordinate with EPA and some of our federal agencies to make sure that we're seeing what dollars are available there. Obviously, there's still things we need to work out. There's still differences of opinion in terms of what's achievable and what's not. I do express caution in terms of the outfall and the opposition that I've received from environmental groups, as well as other communities I represent, as well as just the overall timeline and the expense. It is a permanent solution, and I respect that. but I do think that if we want to achieve this for, my kids, lifetime, or in the near future, we want beaches as clean as we can, that we should really go down this path of pursuing UV and working together to make some big decisions. And again, those decisions happen here at the ground level, so I'm certainly not preaching, just expressing support in what you do and continued collaboration. I'm going to pause there because I tend to ramble too much, and it's probably better value answering questions too, so I'm not just giving a speech. So turn it over to my good friend, dear friend, and I forget that Jenny this is serving out your first term, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a decade, so.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
feel that way too. Thank you. You really said it all, but I'll try and add some color. The first thing I want to do is just thank you all, because over the past year, since we were last here, I've just so appreciated our conversations and our partnership. I know that I can call every single one of you at any moment, and we can sit down and talk, exchange ideas, information. And I think it's that open dialogue that really makes all the difference, because I'm able to help you and you're able to help me, and that is only good for our constituents. And I do think that's rare. I have colleagues who don't have that kind of relationship with their select boards, and so I really value that, and I'm just thank you so much for that. I guess I'll go over the numbers. I know you're always interested in state funding. This year, Chapter 70 for Swampscott was up 4.5%, at $5.34 million. Unrestricted aid only rose 1%, to about $1.6 million. And one thing that I'm really happy that we did is Swampscott, like many of the communities around here, are minimum aid schools. And the per pupil expenditure went from $30 to $104 per pupil for minimum aid districts. So that's fantastic. As you know, because we all opened that wonderful school, the MSBA, because of the legislature, I want to say, was able to contribute more money to finishing the school, offsetting the increase in costs because of inflation. Was $5.3 million. That was a joyful moment when we realized we could bring that home to Swampscott. And having just gone through the school, you used it wisely. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. In terms of the MBTA Community Catalyst Fund, which was announced today, so we don't have a tremendous amount, but I'm thrilled that Swampscott is going to be eligible for this money. The average grants are going to be between $250,000 and $1 million. They will be awarded to projects directly linked to multifamily housing production. So that can be water, sewer, sidewalks, roads, other multimodal infrastructure. The projects will be evaluated. Are they ready? How much do they cost? And will they directly create X number of multifamily units? So you can see the focus is on building housing. But this will be a great opportunity, particularly as Swampscott figures out what it wants to do with its housing plan. So really happy about that.
So I forgot the main thing I was supposed to speak about was transportation. I didn't mention it, so if I could.
Was that the
can I
main
have
thing
some
you
of
were
my- Can I
saying?
steal some of your
It's
time?
because he's chairman, he feels like.
Yeah, it's another green line derailment, so I don't know if I want to be associated with all things T. But just quickly, through our efforts funding in the legislature, also making the case around the Sumner Tunnel closure, we were able to obviously, again, have ferry service here on the North Shore. I do think that there's a great deal of momentum behind this. For a long time, you know, people rolled their eyes when you talked about water transportation back when I started 19 years ago working for then Senator McGee. Then we got it, and, you know, some people didn't share the vision, and it was put away for a bit, but now there's a full-time ferry staff member at the T dedicated to it. There's a whole movement, not just in our community, but to really access water transportation, and not just for seasonal benefits, but year-round. So we're hoping to extend the season again this year and slowly start to build to that year-round schedule. And also the weekends this year were an absolute hit. Like I couldn't believe, looking at the numbers, that it was better ridership than during the weekdays, which for a long time we thought it was just gonna be like a fun thing, you know, maybe a few people use it. So it's, when they went through all the different numbers, Lynn just jumped out on that. I probably should have brought some facts and some numbers, but we knocked it out of the park. So I think we've made the case for long-term service, looking at different boats, backup boats. So I can say with confidence it will be here for next season, hopefully starting earlier and ending later. And then on the commuter rail side of things, we continue to push for electrification. We are still part of phase 1 on the Newburyport-Rockport line going up to Beverly, which again, with electrification, it's, you know, obviously great for the environment, great for public health when you think about all of the folks in EJ communities, from Beverly South through Salem, Swampscott, Lynn, Chelsea, Revere, Everett, all those communities, very, very few of them able to ride, whether because of access to train stops there or because of just too high of a price. Yet they have to deal with a great deal of pollution, particulate matter in there, leading to, you know, much poorer health outcomes. So it's certainly an environmental piece, obviously with climate change, public health piece, but it's also just a much better, more efficient, more reliable ride, 25% more reliable than the diesel locomotives that we currently have. So, and you get that frequency, you'll get infill stations, you know, one at South Salem for Salem State, one in Everett, Wonderland, so you have that connection to the Blue Line. That's actually underway. The design funds there are being put to use now. It's really exciting. Fairmont is getting a pilot, so phase 1 was Fairmont, us, and Providence Line, just because it already is electrified partially. Fairmont's moving forward, and at first it was bittersweet, right? Like, we're all rooting for each other, and, you know, one's gonna have to go before the other. We pushed to have ours included. There weren't enough vehicles, but they're gonna be testing kind of a hybrid model. So it's the catenary, potential for catenary, but also having this battery electric technology, which isn't used in passenger vehicles yet, but around the country, municipalities and states are just, you know, really diving in here. So I think we see how Fairmont goes. I think we'll get the sense of that greater frequency, how long those batteries go, and seeing how we could apply it on our own line, which is, you know, longer, but also, you know, I think certainly many of our communities will be willing for that catenary to help charge as well. So no major updates other than we continue to get more money invested towards kind of design and laying out the groundwork and hoping to see this technology work out on the Fairmont line soon. And one last transportation piece was means-tested fares, which for a long time we fought for, just to make sure that all folks, every person in the Commonwealth can have access to public transportation regardless of their income. So folks that are receiving residents that are receiving certain types of assistance are able to have a reduced fare by half on all modes. So that includes your ferry service, which is traditionally more expensive, as well as commuter rail. This will really open open doors for many, and I don't think we've done a great job getting the word out in really across the state that this is a benefit for people to take advantage of. So obviously anyone watching at home, you know, go to the website and sign up, see if you're eligible, and hopefully it'll lead to greater access for all.
Did you mention with electrification, the price will become?
I didn't, Jenny. Thank you so much.
There you go. Go ahead.
What was part of the vote, it was to, for commuter rail up and down our environmental justice corridor, I should have said at the start, to be subway type prices, so $2.40. That was the vote that was taken. The idea being greater frequency, more passengers, obviously you can reduce fares. But right now, I mean, I grew up in Lynn. I did not take the commuter rail until I was in my 20s. No one, you just can't take it at that price point. But with means tested fares, I think we'll see that shift. But overall, you know, we get that frequency. It's more or less, it's no longer commuter rail. It's, you know, it's essentially subway. Thank you, Jen. Now we open it up to question from the distinguished body.
So, do we have questions? Well, I know we have questions. Want to go first?
Go ahead, Jack.
No, you go first.
No, I don't. Go ahead.
Doug, we're waiting on you.
All right. I have 13 no, just kidding. So you probably don't want to get too much on the record, so you can be very conservative about it, but like the electrification in this area, like what is your wild guess about like when that might really, are we talking about 3 years, 10 years, you know, like just ballpark?
So I'll base it off the Fairmont line. I believe it's within 3 years they will be up and running. So it's the procurement really takes the longest. You know, that is 3 to 6 to 7 years, right?
Yeah.
So until we procure the vehicles, it's kind of hard to say. So it also depends too if this technology pans out or not. I've for a long time pushed back when we talked about battery electric, just because no other passenger service in the U.S. used it. I think it's probably easier to get to for our line, a catenary and traditional model, which does exist as it. So there could be vehicles that pop up. It sounds strange, but like there've been a few different opportunities throughout time where it's like, hey, we could seize onto those vehicles and maybe not have full service, but get it going. Hard to say a timeline. If within the next 7 to 10 years we had the full line, I would consider that to be a victory. If Fairmont pans out and all of a sudden you see the battery electric being mass produced and there are more vehicles to purchase, we would be the next logical line, and then you don't need catenary. So you would think, even if the infill stations aren't complete, that we could at least get some battery electric back and forth and have that frequency. Sorry, I used to say 3 years, and then I was proven wrong.
Yeah, no, that's
3
why
years came and
I
went.
encourage you to be conservative. Yeah. And I really do thank you. I mean, you've been on this for a long time, long time. And
I didn't have gray hair before we started the electrification.
on the housing, I know you just heard about it today. Do you know, you kind of mentioned, Jenny, that it was like kind of for surround support stuff. Could it be for the housing itself?
Could be for purchasing land,
Okay. Okay,
and it can be for engineering designs.
okay, okay. And then, in terms of the housing bond bill,
Yes.
is there anything that we should be doing right now to line ourselves up for, if you don't have the answer, off the top of your head, I understand, but like the question is like, what planning should we be doing right now to best position ourselves for that? Are we just waiting for different contracts that are put out, procurements that are put out, just kind of waiting for that guidance? Or are there ways that we should be thinking right now with our public housing that we need to have a feasibility study prepared right now so then when something comes out, we already have it in hand? Like, what should we be doing?
It's a great question. It may be we're going to get back to it. It was so robust. A lot of it is more private sector driven, incentives for developers to come in. So, obviously you make the land use decisions around here, depending on what fits best. On the public housing piece, let me look into that, because maybe there are things that you could be doing now to position yourself.
No, that's a great question. I mean, we put in $150 million to decarbonize public housing. So, great question. What can cities and towns do to access that $150 million, and when's it going to become available?
And I know these things usually take a while to kind of spin the programs out and all that.
I
But
should say too,
Exactly.
it's I mean, as you know, anytime with bonding, sometimes it's authorizations, right? So it's, the governor has to get, the
Right.
administration has to get these programs up and running, and,
right, there's a lot of chatter, it's
Criteria.
5.2 billion or whatever, but really the real meat of it is only
Yeah.
like half that or whatever.
Or you
right?
can only bond a certain amount
Each
in
year.
any give, right.
Yeah.
Right.
we'll send you over a breakdown.
We will.
You're bored, you're.
I'll leave
right,
King's
go to the
Speech
chair.
to other people.
Yeah, that was my question. So now that we have the support of the administration, and we're looking into the UV treatment, can you kind of walk us through a timeline, best case scenario as to when this could potentially be implemented in Kings Beach?
I mean, many people have been involved here, but I believe the timeline from Kleinfelder for the UV piece was 3 years. We don't have the funding in place, and the administration has not committed the funding, but rather as the testing that has come back, it's been promising, it's been good. There's still certain weather events that have not quite been tested, but I don't think this was ever intended to be 100%, effective. I think it's 85 to 90% to eliminate that, combined with obviously the great work that Swampscott's been doing on IDE, and you guys have been a tremendous partner, and the work that Lynn's been doing as well. If I don't know how much money you need to get a project going at this level. I mean, we are pursuing different federal grants that, again, if the administration is not helping you on that end, I don't know that the federal government pays much attention to a Lynn or a Swampscott necessarily coming without that level of support. So we still have our work to do, though. Even under the best circumstances, we're looking at a number of years away. There's also, potential for pilots too. Like I don't have an exact, we're doing this, this, and this in this timeline, but I think progress has been made, and there are no good answers on this, as everyone here knows. Like all of these scenarios require more patience, more money, and a lot of headaches for both municipalities, certainly.
And we have to get through the permitting process.
Yes, no, understood. And then on the state level, in conjunction, is the outfall extension still an option that is currently being explored?
I don't think anything has been taken off the table, right? We all have the same goal of having this open as soon as we can. I think, there may be some prioritization in need, in that if we have UV, we have the testing results there showing how effective it has been. I think it's worth pursuing that. I mean, there's just been no easy answers, unfortunately. So I think we still need to do our due diligence on all modes. So sorry, it's progress, but it's not. If we do X, Y, and Z, we'll have the beach cleaning up and running in 3 years.
Do you mind if I pipe in
Go
just
ahead,
a little
go
bit?
ahead.
I can't
Yeah.
help myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. I assume you are aware of the kind of latest testing that the famous Liz Smith and committee have done recently, and Chris Vockley, and the fact that there are some things happening in terms of the decrease and impact of all of that. If that doesn't sound like that's, we should make sure that you have that
I'm not-
The
information.
decrease, sorry.
Decrease in bacteria levels and like what's driving that, and some of the testing has shown that there has been some things happening, right, Liz? Am I getting that kind of?
Liz,
Never mind, I won't call you out on it. We'll get you the information.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
corrected.
was, the
Yeah.
decrease I was not aware of.
Yeah, right. I just want to say, it's very much appreciated, kind of the work. And I know that this is like extremely complicated with so many different opinions and, evolving technologies and trying this out and trying to get to something is great. I'll just say one little person here, skepticism about a lot of these things in terms of them actually really working. I know if I understand correctly, the UV was on a kind of a clearish day. It wasn't really worked in kind of normal conditions. I think you referred to this.
No,
I don't think
I
that,
disagree with
I don't
that.
think that was
Okay.
UV.
I would say for UV, it's been tested in many different scenarios. I think there's a certain level of turbidity.
Turbidity,
That's
my
what I
new
mean.
favorite word.
But
Yeah.
to the same end, it was not for major storm events. It was never expected to work. So we continue to test out those. And I have the same level of skepticism on all of our options before us, to be frank, both in terms of timeline and effectiveness. So
I think that's an important point. This UV was never expected to work in a hurricane or a bad storm.
Sure.
It's really meant to just open the beach as quickly as possible on good days. I think we have to sort of set our expectations. The UV has never been seen as the solution. It's been seen as an option to open the beach more than it is right now.
And obviously, the administration had skepticism as well, and they said, "Oh, if you want to try this out, test it out and show us," and that's what we did.
Yep.
So it's, we're taking the steps as painstaking as they may be, and there are more to come. But
And we've run down every ground ball. When you think about, we looked at the parasitic acid, the,
so
what was-
ozone,
the ozone.
I mean, the dechlor.
I mean, anyone who has
and
a
again,
good
if any of those
idea.
pop up, we're still,
Right, we're, we running down every ground ball.
Yep. Meanwhile, we got to line the pipes, fix the pipes.
Danielle, do you have any questions?
I don't know.
Katie?
I guess just as a follow-up to the Kings Beach conversation, I know we obviously, as a community, undertook to do significant testing this year, which we were not required to do, but we committed to do. And I think hopefully the feeling is we will continue to commit to do, if not even greater than the amount of testing we did this year. I guess we've not yet talked about a sort of consortium of testing across our region, but I don't think that's something we're disinterested in, and, you know, to maybe look at testing in Nahant and testing in Lynn, and how we could sort of figure out a way to unify our testing efforts, either to pool for a, you know, better cost or better functionality, or the data all lives in one place and it helps us pursue all these issues on the table, right? Because the data is going to drive the solution. And I think we've said here tonight and other nights that it's not one solution that's going to solve all our problems, or else we'd already be doing it. So, you know, just interested if when you have the stakeholder meetings and conversations, if anything along the lines of sort of a unification of testing across the region has come up. And
Do you mean the water quality? Sorry.
Yeah, the water quality test,
So
the
like
bacteria
at the-
level testing, I
Okay.
should say.
Yeah, so I mean, it's certainly, I mean, it's DPH and DCR on our side.
Right.
So could certainly work with those organizations, and probably, I think there's different testing schedules and all that. I mean, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah,
I don't know that Lynn's testing the DCR water, so.
Yeah, I think the feeling, at least for our own community, is that wasn't enough. And so we, you know, obviously got on board with purchasing our own testing functionality and training our own volunteers, and undertook a monumental amount of time and energy to make sure that not just what we were required to do by DCR, but what we needed to do to make our communities beaches safe for our community, that we did that. And, you know, obviously we're encouraging other cities and towns that surround us to do the same thing, because I think some of the data we found out wasn't exactly what we expected to find out, because we weren't always testing the other beaches because we weren't required to. So I think, you know, the more data we have, it can't hurt us to find a solution, because there are different data points that we've come up with based on the amount of testing we've done this year, involving weather events, involving the way the tide comes in and out, involving, you know, the phases of the moon, and all sorts of things that I cannot even speak to. But I know that smarter people than I are finding sort of maybe some credible data there that can point to other things other than just the pipes leak that cause the bacteria to come onto the beach and make the beach unable to be enjoyed by our community. So I just, you know, some sort of standard that's greater than the standard that DCR imposes on us in the region might be something to talk about or to look at. And I don't know if that's a conversation that's sort of come up at all at any of those Kings Beach stakeholder meetings, but.
Absolutely. So definitely committed to working with DPH and DCR and connecting with whoever the folks are here to kind of figure out where, you know, what the differences are and how
Yeah.
either work together or, you know, take some of your, you know, good ideas and apply them. The system's greatly flawed, right? I live just off of Lynn Shore Drive. We're down, spend a lot of time in Swampscott, though I'm a proud Leonard. My family's here all the time, and those flags aren't always indicative of what it's actually,
Right.
the water, right? It's obviously there's delay in the testing, and it's been a challenge. And every year we discuss it. The Metropolitan Beaches Commission, of which I chair, discusses it. We bring it up. We have hearings. We talk to you. We have no good ideas. Or sorry, I shouldn't say it. We have great ideas. We have not landed anywhere that's
Yeah.
really
Right.
moved the needle in terms of
Right.
us feeling confident in what that flag means, right? So I'd love to partner with, or we in the state
Yeah.
would love to partner with you guys.
Is there an end-of-season report that's been compiled that could give us, you know, sort of a narrative, because we're not sciencey people?
I'm
and-
sure we can pull.
We'll have one.
So words would be great, in some kind of a narrative that we can then use. And you could take to the Metropolitan Beaches Commission, and we can talk to other communities.
You get some
We
great
can-
slide decks
we
and
can find some.
data from every single day over the summer.
I mean, the other challenge too is just, you look up and down the coast this past year, it's just, I mean,
Right,
beaches
it's not just
closed
here.
all over the
Right.
place, right,
Right.
from CSOs and other weather-related issues. So, not to say that to take comfort in other communities suffering like we are, but it's a much bigger issue that the state really needs to grapple with.
Yeah, I think now's the opportunity because it's not just us. I feel like it used to just be a small corner, a small segment of beaches, and those beaches were dirty. It's
Right.
not just us, it's
No.
it's
Right.
entire coastlines that are having these issues. And so maybe there should be some real money put towards these issues instead of sort of leaving them in a corner of the coastline to deal with on their own, so.
It's really part
I
and parcel of
got you
aging
guys 2.5
infrastructure.
million. That was.
It's not enough. We need more.
More.
We need more. We need our
Alright.
beaches clean, that's what we need, so.
Yeah.
We'll not
Take
be
all
able
we'll
to get
get.
more. No, I'm just kidding. We'll keep working.
So before, I do have some questions that don't pertain to Kings Beach or water quality, but before we move from that subtopic, I just want to see, we have the chair of our harbor, of our water and our infrastructure committee. And I just want to, Liz, did you have any questions here? I just want to open that up for you.
Liz, you want to just, Mike?
I hate to put you on the spot, but
But you're here, so you,
I don't want you to call
That's not
tomorrow and say,
nice.
hey, you could have called him.
I think we'd ask Liz, do you have the answers? Can you give us the answers?
So we did do, we tested Fisherman's Beach every single day this summer, and we learned a lot. We learned about rain correlation, we learned that testing every day, you can test on a Wednesday and then wait and test the next Wednesday and miss a whole slew of exceedances in the water based on what's going on when the pollution comes out and where it travels based on tides and currents, and we're still correlating the weather data and the tide data and all of that. But we do have preliminary, which we've already shared with the select board, that does show strong correlation to weather, and really demonstrated that testing every day is more beneficial, more helpful, and gets us more information that's useful to the public. It's not real time. We all know we don't have test results for at least 24 hours once we take the samples. But it's a whole lot better than testing once a week and not really knowing what's going on in between. So we can share that information with you. I think a regional solution is a really good idea to start thinking about. Marblehead might want to be involved. They've already approached us, some people from Marblehead, about, what are you doing? How are you doing it? It's definitely a scalable process and not that expensive. It's more about getting the people trained and the people that can do the work. So I would say that is something that could maybe be a separate discussion for the steering committee, because Kings Beach is tested by DCR every day, and we do know that there's a problem almost every day, right? At least 90% of the days there's a problem. So that, and then that led to the whole discussion about complementary solutions. But we did talk at the last meeting about the community change grant, and we've had more discussions about that. We've actually connected with Valerie and Chris and started talking to see how we can put our heads together around parallel processing, so that we're not just looking at one solution, but we're looking at the breadth of solutions. And there's even a possibility that that could fund some source elimination work as well. So it's very encouraging. So anything you can help us along with that would be, I think, beneficial to everybody.
Well, let us know. So for instance, some of this information about the data, I didn't know. You didn't know.
Yeah. We'll share, we can share our latest deck with you tomorrow. I can send it to you.
Yeah, no, that would be fabulous. And as you know, the steering committee's really been focused on, or task force, I don't know what word it's called. It's really been focused on finding a solution, or
For Kings in particular.
for Kings in particular. So, what you're talking about now would be a broadening of what began as a very informal group of, to just try and bridge the divide between Swampscott and Lynn and try and, work things out. So it's not, sometimes I hear and I read on social media people talking about it, and it really was just an informal group that was brought together to find some solutions. So it may be that looking down the line, a different kind of group needs to come together, to explore those kinds of details.
Okay. Sean, before we jump subjects?
You know, I just want to thank our delegation. You know, the work you did to get us an additional $5 million to address the inflation that happened during the pandemic helped really make that school so successful. I want to just underscore how unique that is for a town of our size to get that type of support. The work around Kings Beach is extraordinary. You know, the fact that, you know, Swampscott and Lynn have come together to really study, spend $100,000, that Swampscott spent $100,000 of its budget to really put together an engineering study on alternative or supplemental strategies, because as Doug has pointed out numerous times, it's not one or the other. We're going to continue to do IDDE. We're going to sleeve every one of these pipes that the town and other communities across the Commonwealth haven't focused on because they're underground, and we're so busy fixing all the things that are above ground that, you know, our beach is really struggling. I hear you on UV. I just want to say we're a small town, and when we think about projects, whether we're building a school or housing for veterans, it starts with site selection. Where do we put it? How do we fit it in to one of the most densely settled regions in the Commonwealth? And it's not just Swampscott, it's Lynn too. Like the neighborhoods that we share, they're so tight. I worry about the timeline associated with site selection for a really industrial type of technology that's primarily for wastewater that we're trying to shoehorn into drainage. And so this is complicated. I'll be in meetings this Friday with the mayor and Lynn. We're going to continue to explore it. I'm fully open to being surprised by something, but I worry about this because I look around the country and I see that Myrtle Beach took them 2.5 years to permit an outfall. And I kind of think, why not this place? Why not the place that we care about? I get the environmental folks that are pushing back. We've looked at the volume of drainage when it comes to Nahat Bay, and it is so, you know, de minimis in terms of the volume of water. I just think if we can keep an open mind and continue to explore how we look at this, we could solve this for the future forever and not worry about whether or not we have a weather event or a day that, you know, might be, you know, a red flag day. You know, that's the hope that I have for this region.
Can I just quickly, I appreciate it. I think we do need to keep all options on the table. I will just point out that we as a group, and Swampscott put a lot into this, and we appreciate that. I mean, money, skin in the game, to having Kleinfelder come in to do all this work over the last few years. And the report did identify a site that was deemed the correct size for what we're looking to do. And they also did the work that showed that UV highly outranked all the other alternatives. So I just don't want to roll back the work that was done by what I believe, or I mean, you still work with them in different ways, like they're a well-respected firm. So I'm a politician, I don't know this stuff, that's why we rely on these folks, and not to say we shouldn't have a level of skepticism. And for the same for the outfall, it was 7 to 10 years, I believe, to the tune of up to $75 million, which is not insurmountable, but it's just, if we're looking to the work that was done that you guys, I mean, that we all, you know, contributed to, I'm just hesitant to ignore it, I guess. And not saying you're ignoring, excuse me, that was not.
Appreciate that.
I think we should take that into consideration, but all options should be on the table, and I know that you and the mayor continue to talk. It's certainly not one community against the other, just two communities trying to solve a really difficult problem together.
Senator, I appreciate it.
And your density point is 100% accurate too. It's not an easy.
$100,000 is literally peanuts in terms of feasibility.
Yeah.
So those cost estimates are kind of planning numbers. We've learned a little bit more about, you know, the systems, the supplemental systems, and I think, you know, I look back and I see that the Executive Office of Environment, the Secretary, in correspondence have said that, you know, they support an outfall. The head of the regional DEP supports an outfall. I hear that as our state partners are willing to get behind something that really could, for generations, solve this problem and get us away from a system that
Yeah.
might be, it's energy dependent, it's, what, we get weather
I
dependent.
mean, the operating costs are fairly low, and I would just say that I appreciate you, there have been concerns in writing from the secretary as well as the undersecretary and other folks, DEP, OEA. There have also been subsequent meetings where they said, we are supportive, you've demonstrated that UV is effective, and we want to help you pursue this, and we're gonna reach out to the EPA. So like, I get it, it's been a back and forth, and it's challenging when you have different, if outfall was achievable in the near future at a fraction of the cost, I would be open to it. Again, there would be challenges, obviously, from surrounding communities and other folks.
I'm grateful, Senator.
I don't want to belay, anyway, I appreciate your partnership in this, and we'll continue to work together. Thank
So
you.
now for my questions. I have just two questions that aren't that complicated. One is, I've looked at other communities and money that they're receiving on the federal level, federal grants and federal things. And I feel like Swampscott as a community, we're not getting that benefit at all. So now, you guys are state, but I'm just wondering if you could assist us with getting a little bit more assistance with our friends on the federal side.
Do you just have an example we could go on?
Not with me right here.
Okay.
I don't have that file with me, but I will get back to you this week. I just would like to have a little bit more access to our two senators, and maybe they can help get some funding down there, not only just for some of the economic development we're trying to work on here in town, but also for Kings Beach and some of the other situations along the North Shore to really get some of these sewer issues taken care of, just some type of funding. I'm not really feeling the love. So, and I'm hoping maybe you folks can help us.
So I will say the earmarking process at the federal level has changed in recent years. So what Congressman Moulton and the senators have to do is they now have created basically a grants process where communities, if they want, apply, and nonprofits can apply, not just communities, but nonprofits too, can apply for a pool of money that each representative and senator is given. And so, and they send out solicitations every year and ask, please apply for this. They tend to want, shovel-ready projects. So that's one avenue. And they tend to rely on that. The rest of the federal process is a bit of a mystery to me.
Okay.
I would say, as we started to look to potential grants to help with UV or any of the alternatives and pilots, whatever, this conversation has come up that we really do need to, and they've been at the table, but
They have.
really need to work closely with our federal delegation because it's going to be that funding. So certainly our relationships there, we'd love to, maybe we could have a follow-up meeting with the town and the congressional delegation.
They've said, they've pretty much said they're waiting for us to pull the trigger, right? That's what they're saying. They're saying, once you decide what you want to do, give us a ring.
Yeah, I think once we
That's
apply,
what they've said to us.
Okay.
which is the same how it works here. If there's a grant that, if there's
Well,
ever a
that's true.
grant, once you apply,
Right.
we'll
It's the
start
same
moving.
at the state level, once you apply, we will support whatever, grant program you're going for. We do it all the time.
Okay, so I just want to jump to different
Yep,
grants.
second.
You and I, Jenny and I have had conversations.
Yep.
We are right on the verge of hopefully being able to bring a hotel to Swampscott and to really put some serious economic development into our community, which will benefit the entire North Shore and the state. And we really would like to see some assistance from the state, whether it's for grants or whatever's out there, but we really need to know what's there, what we can do, and how we can maximize any type of relief. So just put that on the top of your list and help us out. It would be greatly appreciated.
Well, as you and I have talked about, you know, we're in the process of putting together a meeting for the town of Swampscott to sit down with economic development and
Tourism.
probably environmental affairs. It may be a separate meeting to talk about just that.
Right. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if we're all set, really appreciate you coming once again.
Thank you, appreciate your
Our
time.
pleasure.
Appreciate all your hard work and showing up at all of our events with your killer speeches. You knock us out all the time.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Swamptoberfest, too. That was a great escape for my young ones,
Oh, good.
to have them run around. I just come and mooch all of your programming on Town Hall. I don't know if I'm allowed to as a Lynn resident, but
All the time.
We're keeping track, Senator.
Mooch away, Senator.
I paid.
You're allowed like a certain number of tickets per year.
I'm going to smash my pumpkin, too.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll see you at the Pumpkin Smash.
More the merrier.
And you're going to play Smashing Pumpkins?
That's a great idea. We will play a few of those songs.
I saw them live this year. It was really good.
Yeah, awesome.
You did?
I was, we don't need to discuss that here.
Thank you.
Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins. It's good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Might be
much.
like 25 years since I've seen Green Day.
Okay, now we'll move on to sign the warrant for the state election.
Right, this is a ministerial responsibility for our democracy. As the select board, this is your warrant and requires your approval and signature.
So, we need a motion?
Yes, if you just motion to approve the warrant as presented, we can either attach your digital signatures or you can sign it.
I'll make the motion to approve the warrant as written.
Second, Katie?
Second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
And I believe we signed it,
That's right.
hard copies.
Okay, moving along. Discussion and possible vote to sign the memorandum of understanding for interagency mutual aid for Essex County. Should I say Essex County Police?
Yes.
Essex County Police.
So this is a standard mutual aid agreement. As I understand it, you know, it is just part of a standard mutual aid shared services. If there's ever an incident or an event, we would receive support from communities that participate in the mutual aid agreement. We have a number of, we have 34 cities and towns in Essex County, and looks like about 3/4 of them participate. Captain Cable is here tonight to represent the chief. Captain, would you like to share any additional thoughts about the agreement or anything that?
Absolutely. The town administrator said it's fairly standard
Yeah.
in Massachusetts. We have very strict jurisdictional rules. Cities and towns are kind of separated. Oh, thank you very much. So about 20 years ago, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts recommended that cities and towns enter into an agreement such as this to take care of some jurisdictional issues that were commonly cropping up in criminal cases. So outside of this agreement, the only time that we can assist each other is fresh and continuous pursuit or a direct OIC to OIC request. So if an officer needs assistance from another community, it's a matter of getting in touch with our OIC, having them somehow call.
OIC is officer in charge?
I'm sorry, officer in charge, the person that's in charge of the police departments at the time. It's very difficult and it makes it cumbersome and it impacts a lot of cases. We've initiated mutual aid, either sending or receiving 96 times in the last 3 years. More often than most people would realize. Sometimes it's very mundane accidents, which Lynn needs assistance, we need assistance. Recently, Lynn assisted us with a foot pursuit, and we actually engaged this or used this agreement many times in our protest a few years back. Just so everybody understands, this doesn't mean that any other officer can come into the town of Swampscott and just be exercising their authority. The second they come here and they act under their authority as a police officer, they have to check in with us, and the Swampscott Police retain full control over our jurisdiction. We also assume no liability for anybody that comes and works within the town of Swampscott. The sending agency retains that liability, but the same applies to us when we assist with another agency. And the agreement is reviewed annually by the Mass Chiefs of Police just to make sure it's operating as intended. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Danielle? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, no.
The only question I have is why are there so many that aren't It just seems like, every time I see it, I'm like, why doesn't the city of Peabody, or are they just out of sync, or is it?
Yes, I think that's what happened. It works well and it gets off of people's radars. So it started in 2003 is when they first pulled this together. By 2010, there was 100% participation. And then since then, I think some agencies just haven't basically
Gotcha.
renewed this agreement, but the Mass Chiefs is pushing to get once again to 100%.
Yeah, there's no cost to it, it's just basically in the event of an emergency, we protect the town, and we will support our region with public safety, so.
Great. So we need a motion.
Motion to.
Authorize the chair to sign the agreement.
Motion to.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right. Next, we have discussion and possible vote on $224,000 National Grid grant opportunity for lighting with future requests for warrant and funding. We talked about this at our last meeting, and Sean is just giving us an update.
Sure, some good news. We are not under the same kind of time duress that we were 2 weeks ago. I did meet with Joe and Dulett and Max Casper. They have reached out to National Grid.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, Joe's in the back of the room here. He's a little camera shy, but Joe has said that while we'll still need to seek funding at a special town meeting this fall, the work can actually happen sometime this spring. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with an update on the procurement of this lighting system and the funding. There are some things that are going to change in terms of what we presented at our last meeting in terms of how we can finance the work, but we're pulling that together.
Great. Any questions? Great. Okay, so now we will move on to discussion and possible vote on members for the following boards and commissions, starting with Commission on Disability. Danielle? Oh, no. So on disability, we're moving,
Yeah,
we're moving that to our to a future meeting.
Yes.
I got it. Recreation?
That's me. So we are nominating Cynthia Flannery.
So we need a motion to nominate Cynthia Flannery to the Recreation Commission for, is there a period of, what's the
It's a 3-year term.
3-year term?
Expires in 2025.
Okay,
Oh,
And we're appointing or not nominating.
Nominating, appointing.
we're appointing her.
so she expires next year, and then she'll come up for re-election on a 3-year term.
Exactly.
So, okay, it's
So it's one.
It's a 1 year.
final year of a 3-year.
It's really a 1 year.
Okay, all right. So do we have a motion
Motion?
on the floor? We second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just want to confirm that this was a consensus among the chair, yourself, and
It was?
that this is the correct person for the job.
Yes.
Excellent.
Why are we doing it now if she still has one more year?
This
Is that what
spot's
I
open
understand?
right
She
now.
doesn't,
Spot's
it's
open.
open,
She's not
she's
on it.
filling the spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this
It
spot
is a
is
1 year
open,
initial.
so you're left.
Yeah. That particular spot that she's taken.
Okay, so now we have Water and Sewer Infrastructure Advisory Committee. We're moving up a alternate into the vacant position.
Yeah, that's correct. So I've discussed with Liz Smith, and who's the chair of the Water Sewer Infrastructure Advisory Committee, and it's her recommendation, and I support it, to recommend the appointment of Matthew Pellin as a member with a 1-year term, which expires June 30, 2025.
Second, David's motion?
You second?
Yes, I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. And Zoning Board of Appeals, we have Danielle up again?
Yep, so this is Michelle Graham for the actual member position and Anthony Sanchez for the associate position. And yes, Heather Roman and myself and Marissa Meany also worked on this one. We had a lot of really good candidates, and
we agree that these two will be appointed. Appointed, right, Diane?
Correct.
Thank you.
So is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I had a question.
Oh.
So later on in the consent agenda, there is information about the zoning board of appeals. Do these appointments have anything to do with something, a consent agenda item number 1?
No.
No, it's
No.
separate and distinct.
Yep, totally separate. That's just, in the consent, it's just a fix.
Yeah, what we did last time.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, that's a
All right,
correction, I was told.
it's a correction.
okay, I'm supportive.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, so we have all that fixed. Now we're on discussion and possible vote to amend select board handbook and code of conduct. Let's just chug away through it.
So I sent out the revised handbook on Sunday to the board, but it was pointed out that it was not a red line. So if you would like, I did a compare, which I emailed before the meeting, but it was very close to the meeting. So I could either go through and tell you which sections I made changes to, that way we can approve that way, or we can have further discussion, whatever pleases the chair.
So I'm open to anything. It's just because I didn't have the red line, I did double check a few things. So there's a few things that on my copy that we talked about changing last week that we didn't change. For example, under chapter 3, board meetings, E, motions, the chair may not make a second motion.
Under chapter 3,
3E,
Okay, so,
how did we
could
leave
we,
that?
would it be okay if we just went in order with the red line, and when we got to that point, you pointed out?
Sure, are we gonna put it up on the screen?
I can, what do I do, just log into Teams and share, Diane?
And you should have the link, you can
Okay, hold on.
use that link.
Start at the beginning.
All right. I am logged in if you wanna give me capability to share. I do not currently have it. Okay, let's see here.
Hey,
The compare, okay. So let me make this larger. We can see it. All right, so scrolling down the first additional change that was made, and this does, obviously the comparison, when you do a compare, it accepts the changes that were made from the last revision, and it only shows the difference of the two, so it's not going to show that all the changes that we had agreed to the last meeting. So, Mary Ellen, as we get to the points, if you think some of the changes I made are not reflective of what was discussed, just let.
Yours might have it, so.
Okay, so this is section C, sorry, let me just.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3, C,
E.
I'm sorry, no, but
CE.
before that, there was a change that came up on the red line that we made this to business day.
Right.
So that's fine, hopefully everybody, I just want to point out all the changes so that everybody knows there was some formatting issues in this section, F, but you had something in E. Mary Ellen, correct?
E, so does yours show that the chair, we have here,
Any member except for the chair can make a motion. Motions must be seconded in order to move a board vote. The chair may not second a motion.
so are we staying with that? Because I thought we went to the chair can second a motion.
Okay.
right, that was the not, we were gonna take the
We're
not
gonna
out.
Taking the not out.
Okay,
Yeah.
take the not out.
Good catch, Mary Ellen.
And then,
So then, some changes were made in G1.
oh, hold on,
Do you have something before that?
I do have some, so we left E, then if you're in F3,
3, town council.
Town council, at the request of the board, comma, town council may attend meetings to provide legal direction, I'm just wondering, should that say at the request of the board or chair? Because what happens is this saying that we're asking the whole board if town council could come? Because we'd have to vote in open meeting and then ask town council. We might,
I don't think that's how we facilitate it now, right? We don't vote for town council
We
to
don't.
join us, we just make the request.
right,
Yeah,
but this says at the request of the board,
So you're saying it should say at the request of the board or the chair?
right?
why doesn't it just say at the request of any
Any
member of
board
the
member?
board?
Any member of the board?
Well, because it said any member of the board, if the chair is putting everything on the agenda, do you want to have it where a member of the board can call and ask for legal counsel to be there?
Well, how
I
do
think
we
it's-
operate now? Do we allow that now?
No. We have a budget. Every time you talk to an attorney, it's a lot of money, and we've got a fiduciary to manage. I think the
Do you
control.
not give the chairs of the committees the option to
No.
talk to?
Nope, they go through the town administrator. It depends on what they're asking.
Right, but I think you said it the last time that you never say no?
No,
When they
I say
ask?
no all the time, but I generally, when it comes to the budget, I try to help my board chairs, and when they do email me, like, generally, they'll email me a question, and I'll review it, and if it's a question that we haven't had a legal opinion prior, we'll send it off and we'll get a legal opinion. But we
So
try to
the-
keep
Sure,
some type of
understandable, understandable, with $300,000 or $400,000 over in a legal item. So if they're offered that same courtesy, I would think a select board member should be offered the same. That would be my,
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there are a lot of legal things, but I do think, if it can go through the chair and it comes to the
No,
town administrator.
I'm talking about that line item, that is actually different. I'm just talking about town council being at a meeting. The only reason I'm saying, say, or chair, is because at the last minute, we might want to have legal counsel, and the board wouldn't be able to meet in advance and say, we want to have legal counsel. I'm just trying to broaden
Right,
it so that,
after you said that, we said any select board member, right? So that's what we were speaking about, I think?
Right.
We
okay.
said to change the wording to any select board member, and that's why I asked John. That's where that came from.
Right.
So what are we saying we want to?
I just think the chair is
Want it
running
to go
the
through the chair.
meetings. And let's say, if any select board member can actually call up town council and say, I want you at that meeting tonight, like, to me, that,
Not according to the, oh, I'm sorry.
right. But what I'm hearing is that, there might be a consideration to have any select board member be able to reach out and invite town council to a meeting. I think that could get a little confusing at times, and I think the chair actually should be in charge of that responsibility.
or the board saying, we would like to have legal counsel at this meeting. So you would be at an open meeting, and you would be able to be at an open meeting. Otherwise, the board cannot have a discussion.
Right, but I think that's a catch-22, because we get the agenda, and then we look at the agenda and say like, oh, there's an agenda item, I want counsel there for that, but we don't have an open meeting before that open
But-
meeting.
Exactly, so that's why you would
So
say
then
the
I
chair.
contact the chair,
Right.
That's right, just
and then if
contact the
you-
chair.
and then say you're like, no, I don't think that it's necessary for that. Now I have to violate open meeting law and get another select board member to email you the same thing so that they say that, so that, like, there's no way to get 3 people to come together. So then, in essence, we have the right to ask, you have the right to say no, but we don't have
Well, the
a
chair.
forum, right?
So it should say at the
Right, your
request of the chair.
position has the right,
Right.
right.
Request of the chair.
So what do you want it to say? Sorry.
At the request of the chair.
So at the request of the chair,
I mean, I think that's
rather than,
Or it could be both.
Both.
We could
I'm
meet in
saying
advance.
both.
board
You're
or
saying
chair.
Both.
yeah.
Board or chair.
The board could have
Or-
met in exec session
That's
or
right.
whatever, and,
If
or
3 members of the
previous
board
meeting,
vote,
and, yeah, right.
That's a,
Right.
So we're all good, board or chair.
okay. So then scrolling down to G, citizen participation.
Right.
This part I left as it was from our conversation, and then I assume what will happen is once we approve it, the whole handbook will go to council to review. And then if they have friction on this section, they can come back and say yes or no, or we don't, this doesn't work for us because of your
Okay,
issues you brought up earlier.
that was my question.
Some formatting problems, we'll pull this page up so that it's not a whole blank page. Okay, goal setting, I think I added the quarterly operating budget review to January. I added the capital discussion,
March.
to March, although it looks like it's already on here. It says capital first Wednesday, CIC presents proposed capital plan to select board. So, I mean, I don't know if we just add third Wednesday, continued discussion of capital plan, or if you really need to have a whole nother
Right.
section here. Does anybody have feelings, thoughts about that?
Did we also move the water sewer rates as well? I just
Yeah.
I had notes for
Yeah, we
March.
should.
Yeah, so August came out, hold on.
Well, can we finish the
Yeah,
capital plan
can
one?
I take this capital
Oh, yeah,
plan
yeah,
out?
yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes.
With
Yeah, I
everybody?
think,
Yes.
yeah.
It seems redundant now.
It
that
is.
We have it above. And then there's an additional quarterly budget review in April. And then we did take out the annual water sewer rates for August, but you're saying it should have gone to March?
That was what it was in my notes.
Right,
Okay,
it's
so
supposed to be in March.
let me add it back here. Alrighty, and then, so July gets a quarterly operating budget review. September, there's a fiscal year revenue projection discussion. October is a quarterly review, and then November, a 5-year financial forecasting review. And then we took the operating budget year to year from the quarterly report section because we reflected them above.
Right.
And to be honest, I mean, we didn't discuss this last time, but the enterprise funds and the capital improvement year-to-date statuses being quarterly reports, if you want to pick months and put them in there
Right.
and take that section out in totality, it doesn't, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but it gives a good roadmap of exactly what we should be doing at certain months instead of leaving it open.
I think that's a good idea.
So if there's a suggestion then for maybe just the leaner months that we have these conversations.
Should we just add them in when we're doing the quarterlies on everything financial?
I think you should
Or
get a
is that
monthly
too much?
budget revenue report. And, quarterly, you should have the quarterly report because, with the quarterly, you can start to gear up for any type of action that you have to take with revenue. Like, let's say your revenue drops and you need to direct some reductions to help meet budget, because I think there's a lot of folks think, hey, the budget's approved, we can spend all that money. It's never like that.
Right.
It's
Right.
budget's approved, we're managing revenue throughout the fiscal year, and we're trying to manage to budget. And as the policy board, you have a chance to, during the quarterly updates, really see the performance of the budget and revenue and get a sense of whether or not, there needs to be further analysis on spending levels to control the budget.
So then why don't we move the,
Just
move them into the quarterlies?
both the capital and the budget,
Yeah,
enterprise funds?
I would say so.
And then we'll remove section C, because it will be unnecessary.
Because you're gonna have it in your packets in advance, and
Okay.
if there's nothing big moving on there, it'd be an easy conversation.
All right, so then there were some formatting issues which were fixed. I updated the Climate Action and Resiliency Committee name and the Recreation Commission name from committee.
There's one committee that we have left, that we still have the article, we never disbanded Article 6 committee, and that was a committee for regionalization. I would think we still have to keep it on the books.
It was a committee of town meeting, right?
Yes,
So I think if town meeting creates a committee, they should dispose of it.
right.
So maybe we should think
So
about
is that
putting
considered,
on
that would be
warrant.
considered a standing committee?
We'd have to go back and look at the town meeting vote,
Mhm.
if it was.
I don't know if it was an advisory committee.
I think it was a study committee. Town meeting often appoints study committees.
They didn't title, I remember it, they didn't title it a study committee, they just said it was,
There was a report that was issued by the Article 6 committee. They engaged the Collins Center.
Right, the Collins Center did the report, but the Article 6 committee was just meeting constantly, trying to advance
Efficiencies.
different efficiencies, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the only way that we can remove that is through town meeting. So I think maybe we just put it under advisory committee,
Advisory committees.
or either way, just, it's gotta go somewhere.
Okay.
While we're on that, oh, there it is, okay.
Article.
Traffic safety, traffic study is still a committee, too.
Yeah, it is. It's just called the Article 6 Committee?
Yeah, that's all it was called, Article 6.
Okay. Yes, to Doug's point, I tried to gussy up this section for the advisory committees. There was, in the first paragraph, we talked about the authority of the advisory committee is limited, so that we understood which authority was being limited, not, we'll add the Article 6 committee. The Water and Sewer Infrastructure Advisory Committee is now listed on here. And the Community Life Center Task Force, and then we took, so that is that. Okay, then moving on to the appointment process for these committees. So I did my best to detail the process as I understood it, but,
So I have a question under goals and appointments bullet number 3. How did we leave it with to ensure boards and committees have members residing in Swampscott as many voting precincts as possible?
Where's that, Mary Ellen?
goals
B,
and appointments.
1,
It's the third bullet.
third bullet point.
Oh.
I thought we
Do I
said,
recall correctly that we said we wanted to leave it this way? They put pressure on the fact that it would be someone, and if there needed to be some exception, we would make that thing.
Okay,
Because this is a handbook, we can override this if we,
because it's just a goal, that's what it was, because it was it was a goal.
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that was our key there.
Yep.
Okay. And then, under 2, process, my concerns, as I had brought up when I wanted to make changes, my concern was putting too much emphasis on chairs and not, and having chairs controlling who's sitting in meetings, who's not. So that was the reason why I had brought that up. But under here, under F, I just want to make sure that we add, each application is reviewed by appointment, select board liaison, and select board, because I want to make sure that if the select board is voting on members, the select board can is looking at resumes, and then sending an email or contacting the liaison, making their recommendation.
But I guess what I'm confused about is how the process is playing out in practicality. So each application, the applications come in, Diane vets them, they go to the liaison right now.
Right.
In the way I had understood it and the way it was explained, I felt like the way it was explained originally to me was that it would go to myself and the chair. We would work together to come up with, either through interviewing or what have you, come up with a person for myself to submit to the board. But I would say, like, as I asked Danielle, how does the chair feel about it? That it would be a collaborative communication to bring a person forward for the board. It wouldn't just be, I reviewed the applications and I felt like it was the best fit. So for this section, that's why I thought the conversation between David, Danielle, and I last week, that this reflected that part of the conversation where it's the liaison, the committee chair, and the applicable town staff review the applications. However the process works between the 3 of them, they come to a conclusion, which then the chair puts forward to the select board, and then the select board can have opinions at the select board meeting.
So what you're asking though, is you're asking the select board, this is what I wanted to make sure that, when I had put this forward, I wanted to make sure that the select board would see resumes and give a recommendation on, they might think, I'd like to support these, I think these 3 or 4 people will be good good mixes, and when these come in front of me, I'm gonna be in support of these three or four people, whichever one you pick.
So,
But what you're saying right now is, the select board doesn't even see applications. And the one thing that we did, I think the reason why this worked, when we saw applications, when we put together the infrastructure committee, all the applications went out to select board members. Select board members contacted Sean and said, you know, who they thought would be stronger or not as strong, or what their recommendations were. And then it was put together, and then the recommendations came to the board. What I'm saying here is that I just think it's important that the select board sees these resumes, and if you should so choose, you give your opinion to the liaison. And then it's the liaison who is either contacting the chair, contacting staff, contacting whoever you want to contact to come up with your idea.
I'm
Well, we can add,
I'm fine with that. I think it's, what I'm hearing Mary Ellen say is, there's another line in here, like, when you send out the application, send them out to everyone.
That's
Everything
it.
else kind of continues with what you have. You know, if, you know, you're using the collective little mini crowdsourcing, basically, if anyone else has any input, basically, they can feed that to the liaison. But at least everyone's seeing who's being considered.
yeah,
That's it.
I think conceptually, I'm fine with that idea that
And that's not in
we
there
all
right now.
have an opinion prior to it coming to the table as a recommended person. I guess the part that I'm uncomfortable with is to take the chair out of the process.
I'm not
No, no,
recommending
no.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I second that. I want to make sure the chair is involved, and the liaison is then the sounding board for the.
I'm not recommending that here, but I am saying that I do not want to see, I am very hesitant of chairs having too much of a heavy hand in who gets on a board, only because I find that my worry is somebody is friends with somebody else. I'm friends with somebody on the select board, I'm friends with the chair, I'm friends with here. I just want to make sure everybody has the best shot, and we take out the friend part of it.
Well, I think if you're worried about that, Mary Ellen, I think this process takes care of that. Because you really got the liaison and the chair and maybe town staff working together to come to
As
a
a collaborative.
conclusion.
Right.
I thought you were actually worried about something else. I thought you wanted all of us to see all of the applications for everything flow through us at least, which I'm actually fine with. I mean, I can choose how much I want to dive into every single thing,
Right.
but it's really, I'm relying on the liaison to do that work.
Right.
I
Right.
think that.
No, that's what I am saying, I am saying that everybody should see all the applicants, and you give your opinion on there.
That's fine, but that doesn't
Right.
really address the issue of chairs picking friends, like,
No, that's,
okay.
that's,
yeah,
right,
okay.
right. So,
So, just to weigh in on this, I think that perfect example is how my committee appointments went with this given scenario. I sent out after discussing with the chair and town staff, who we thought would be the best fit. I sent it out to the group, and I got some great feedback. And that's how the process really, worked itself out. I think that it has to be a balance of power, right? I think that the chairs have to be a part of the conversation. They're the chairs, right? They have a role. But I think that, ultimately, the appointment comes from the select board member who's putting it up, right? That's where the buck kind of stops, right? At some point, someone's got to make a decision. But it should be done after collaboration with the chair, maybe not always agreement, maybe there's gonna be a back and forth, maybe there are situations where, a chair wants somebody and a select board member wants somebody else, but that's democracy, and that's what we're supposed to be working through and talking through and guiding them and having input. I think that's where we have the input, but I don't think that either side has to be, the decision maker. It's a collaborative approach, it has to be.
the only request I was putting in here is to add select board. You have select board liaison, you have reviewed by select board liaison, committee chair, and one applicable town staff.
Yep, so I guess the worry that I have is that we could accidentally be violating open meeting law if we aren't directing our conversation to, say, Diane of what if we're all reviewing
Everything.
resumes, right? and then we reply with our preferences, and then somebody else replies to Danielle and somebody else replies to Danielle on preferences, that might be a violation of open meeting law, because now we're having a discussion on the topic
Yep.
via email. So in order
Send
to
it.
avoid that, I think we need to communicate preferences directly to town hall
Town staff.
staff, and then town hall staff needs to facilitate that conversation between
Mhm.
the chair and
Right.
the liaison, so that we aren't stepping in that.
Got it.
That's an excellent point, Katie. I do think, the intentions here are all good. You want to make sure that you have, fair representation. Mary Ellen, your points are strong too. You don't want to have groupthink on these committees. You need really strong, independent thinkers. And sometimes committees can devolve into that, not because of any bad reason. It's just people sometimes, get too comfortable. But you have to be very careful about how you deliberate about that.
Okay.
And in going through the chair alone, not with other members, and not emailing each other, you don't want to unintentionally just get caught up in an open meeting law issue.
So just send
So I-
information to,
I added, I don't know if you can see, but I added, it now says the committee chair, select board liaison, select board members, and when applicable, are encouraged to interview each candidate and collaborate to select a candidate for each position. I can add a sentence about select board members shall communicate through the town administrator's office their
Yeah.
preference. Um,
50 minutes until the vice presidential debate.
Thank you, Doug.
Should be a barn burner.
Did you set the popcorn?
Okay.
I think I'm
All
that
right.
excited.
But the rest of the edits to the section are as everybody understands the process to go, correct?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Let me scrolling down. What's in there? Okay. Some formatting that we
What was
fixed.
that fuzzy one that you were
Yeah.
trying to push past us?
No, it was fuzzy, and then I scrolled up and scrolled down to make it not fuzzy, Doug. I would never try to get something by you like that.
That's too easy, Doug.
And I'm being recorded, so for sure, people will be talking about that later. Chapter 9, the town administrator, we implemented the changes as discussed. Here are the red lines. One was a typo, we added whenever practicable to section C. Enacted was all smushed together, so I just unsmushed it.
were we, see, okay.
Yep, and then this is highlighted because my notes were not clear about it. So I wanted to make sure that everybody reviewed it and that was as
As the
the
charter.
discussion and the charter.
Right.
Well, I think the discussion we had was maybe we have to look at the charter.
It was.
And so I left it highlighted because that hasn't happened yet and we
Right.
can, but if it aligns with the charter, is that the discussion as was had 2 weeks ago?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so I'll make a comment.
I don't think the charter says anything about this.
I thought
Someone said it
somebody
did.
said it said, so we'll
Oh.
check
I
it.
don't know.
You mean we're not going to vote on this finally tonight?
I mean, we could as revised, so long as it doesn't
Violate the
But-
charter.
I mean-
validate the charter.
Maybe,
I don't think
sorry
it
if this is a replay, but every department head, how about just the ones, maybe this is the conversation we had.
This-
There's
Right, this is-
numerated
there's
ones for
yes.
hiring, right?
Yes,
Correct.
right.
And I guess I came away thinking it was just going to be the reciprocal for those same positions.
Yes.
Right.
It would be this kind of the reverse for the termination,
Right, so
not
if he's got to
for,
come to us to hire, then he's got to come to us to fire.
right. But if
That's
they,
already in place.
Where does it say that? Sorry.
That's
In the charter.
contract.
That's already in the charter.
Yeah, so
That's in
Oh,
the
so-
we
charter.
were just trying to make sure that this,
Reflected,
that this
yeah.
reflected
What was in the
Charter.
charter?
what's in the charter.
but this is broader, the way.
No, it's not meant to be broader.
Okay.
So,
No.
So can we strike it?
sure, I'll take it out in totality.
So this would be department, I just have a quick question. This would be department head These could possibly be department heads that don't have contracts.
Yeah.
That,
They're not
Aren't
enumerated.
enumerated in the town charter.
right. So did you just say we're taking it out?
Yeah, we're striking it because it's in the
Because it's
charter.
already in the charter.
We're not trying to give ourselves broader rights than we already have under the charter.
Right.
So if it's already in the charter, and if we are being consulted to hire them, we are being consulted to fire them.
It's covered.
Is there anybody we're not consulted to hire?
There are.
Yeah,
That
there's a
would be
lot of people.
vulnerable? Oh, that are heads of departments?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Sean can,
There's probably not
or the
many.
town administrator can hire.
There are not
at
many,
his
but there are a few.
discretion. But, I mean, there's,
Okay. All right.
I don't know why it's doing that. I'll fix the formatting part.
Is that finished, Katie?
Does that finish it, Doug?
No, is that finished, that sentence there?
It should say personnel.
Similarly, are you talking about the one that's got the purple highlight?
Yes.
Hold on.
It should say personnel.
What is that?
Personnel? Yeah,
I just don't know why it's purple highlighted, that's all. I'll figure that out after.
okay.
Board members should speak with the town administrator, okay. Keeping the chair apprised of the matters we spoke about last week. And then going down to chapter 10, liaisons. We had just made a couple of, these are the notes that I had, that the liaison should help guide the goals and actions. And we just took this usurping language and added it here so that, the liaison should be careful not to usurp the prerogative of the chair. And then we added this section, with the exception of the advisory committee members, town boards and committees must be free to act on their own will without interference from the select board. Towards that end, when attending meetings of other boards and committees, board members, being us, and liaisons shall generally respect the committee's autonomy. And there's some format there, and this section is the relations with town staff. Adding the sentence, the select board and its individual members should communicate with town staff as appropriate and include the town administrator or at time its designee. And then we took out this assistant town administrator stuff and just said at its designee.
Okay.
Relations with residents. David, I added that sentence. Every attempt will be made to provide select board with presentations and relevant information at least 48 hours prior to select board meeting. I think we all requested that. And then
That was it?
that is it. So, barring the section on the charter and then obviously a review of town council, we could, if folks were comfortable, have a motion to approve the handbook as revised, so long as, we took that section out about the charter.
Right.
We took that out, but I don't want to vote on something without town council coming back.
Okay, but if town council
Can
said,
we,
Town council
we vote
says,
on it subject to town
Yeah.
council
Right.
approval?
yeah,
Is that a
Exactly
motion?
That's a motion.
second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, because it's getting late, I think, I wanted to try to hit a couple of the pages on code of conduct, but it's getting late. We have we can
I was just,
punt
I was gonna say, the
this.
night is young
It's
compared to
okay.
other meetings, but
Yeah.
if y'all wanna get,
10:30,
Okay, so let's move to the consent agenda.
we did not review the social media policy then.
Right.
No.
Oh,
Is that under the code of,
I
that's
forgot.
under,
So-
that's under code of conduct?
So,
probably should be in both.
it doesn't exist anywhere right
Right.
now, so
Doesn't
what we could do it multiple ways, I think. Some municipalities just have standalone social media policies that control boards and committees, employees, encompassing elected and appointed and employed personnel. So we sort of took from that standard sort of approach and put together this amalgamation of like a couple other towns' policy for you guys to review. It could be maybe when we do the review of the code of conduct, it might make sense to put it in there because that controls both boards and committees, both boards, committees, and ourselves, but it wouldn't necessarily cover personnel. It might make sense to have it standalone so that it covers all three if we wanted it to. I guess it depends on what we intended the ultimate outcome of it to cover, to make sense where to put it.
It should cover everyone.
Should probably be a standalone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good that it's standalone because I think it's really important in this day and age that we are implementing a policy
So-
that we are holding everybody to.
If we're good with that, so first we have to see if everybody's good with that. And if we are good with that, then we're gonna have to make an adjustment into the handbook to add it. We're gonna have to make an adjustment into the handbook that this is another policy that, we have the code of conduct, we have the handbook. It just has to be another policy that people have to check off.
Well, I don't think right now,
Well, I think shouldn't it be done in conjunction with an employee social media policy also? Or is
this
it?
covered.
I think it
this
should
covered
cover.
both. It covered everybody.
Right, so, but it has to kind of go along with an employee handbook as well, which
Well, you could sign this before employee handbook, couldn't you?
you sure could, but
Yeah.
we don't have technically an employee handbook
Right.
right now.
Right.
So the language and parts of it are something that, should be incorporated, I think, in an employee handbook.
So you
So I-
could,
So, I mean, you can do it without, it's kind of like cart before the horse, right? It's usually like an addendum to an employee handbook,
Okay.
like acceptable use, social media.
Mhm.
Right.
We don't have any of that right now for employees.
it could be that we get a cart and then soon we get a
Right,
horse.
and then
So
we
you could
create
hook
it
up
after
and-
that,
Right.
we can have that standalone policy and then
Right.
build the handbook off of that. It's just not how you normally do it, but you can.
We're not accustomed to being normal, Danielle.
Yeah.
So as it pertains to us right now, I'm hearing that we're pretty much all in favor of having a standalone. And the next question is, does anybody have any opinions on the actual policy?
Well, first of all, I want to thank both of you a lot for
All this
what I
work.
imagine must be a considerable amount of work, not only in this, but also on the handbook, so thank you. The only, I will admit that I have not studied this for a long period of time. I kind of read through it. But the one thing that jumped out to me, and I think it's probably just needs to be contextualized, in 3, policy, all town social media sites shall be approved by the select board. What do we mean that, like, the fact that there will be a site, not that we're literally like approving, like,
Yeah, like if rec had its own site.
It
that
should probably say accounts
account-
instead of
Yeah,
sites.
yeah, there you go.
thank
Right.
you.
And are we retroactively approving these sites if they already exist, or are we just approving new pages or new?
I think
Well, I
we have
think
to
we should
look at
have an
everyone.
inventory of what exists today, because
Yeah.
I think that would be smart to do that.
Just to
and
be consistent.
Just to be,
have all of the towns' pages be
Yeah.
doing the same thing.
Doug, where was that, edit really quick?
3A, page 1,
Page 1, 3A, I.
just all town social media accounts to what Danielle.
okay.
Yep.
And then there should be some sort of inventory kept, whether it's in the office of the town administrator, or HR, that just gives a list of.
Senior
social-
center.
Yeah, social media
rec.
accounts, and then who administers those accounts, right?
Yeah.
So, like, who has access to administer
Right.
those accounts?
And that was my question. Who are the moderators
Right.
of the
Yeah.
town of Swampscott?
Yeah.
Who selected these individuals? And
Yep.
Right,
personally, I don't think elected officials should be involved.
Totally agree.
I don't think so
I think
either.
these are typically, we have to pay fees for some of these accounts. They ultimately, it's the town's responsibility, so, the town should be managing them. We have to comply with all sorts of state and federal laws, and you just can't volunteer your way through that.
But as part of the inventory that we're gonna do, we'll also have a list of who the moderators are for each of the pages.
And
Yeah.
really a list by position, not person, because that is,
right.
can
So
change.
if it's, for
If you have, you
example,
can have names.
No,
and
recreation, it would be
titles.
director of recreation,
Right.
assistant
Yeah.
director, or whatever their titles are, so that if those
People ever,
changed positions, that
you just have the title.
would not be with the person, it would be
Right.
with the
So
title.
typically, it's every department head, they're in charge of their landing pages. They have privileges to update certain, landing pages. We do have some boards and committees, but typically we have the staff that are affiliated with those boards and committees responsible for just updating, some of the social media, pages for those departments and committees.
It's really anybody that's gonna act on behalf of the town.
Right.
So anybody that's gonna speak or make comments or
That's right.
make sure that they're following
Generally, we've had
all of the rest of the
issues
rules.
here and there, but generally it's, people understand, you've got to separate your personal from your public responsibilities.
So we can, continue, I don't know if anybody has any other updates, but we can always, look at this again when we look at the code of conduct, if people want to make more in-depth, because Doug, I know you said you didn't really read it.
I didn't.
I'm sure I was the only one that didn't
I'm
study
sure
it.
you
I
were
didn't
not, you were the
either.
only
I
one who
truly
admitted
did
it.
We've
But
borrowed a lot
not
of this
everybody
from
with a
other towns.
fine-tooth comb went through all the paragraphs, so
I didn't go through it with
or if something doesn't make sense, just because it worked for another municipality, doesn't mean it will work for us.
Okay, so we'll just add this to, when we go over the code of conduct.
But to your point, Mary Ellen, having, hopefully, did we vote
Yeah, we
on this? But we probably should add reference to the social media policy to,
To the handbook.
yeah, so it
Right.
says affirming the oath
As
of
it is in the
office,
code of-
review the exception of
Oh.
the handbook, the board and committee handbook, the code of conduct, and the social media policy.
Yep.
Right, okay.
I'm happy to accept that as a friendly amendment to the vote we already took. Yeah.
Excellent. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So moved.
Here we are.
All right. So, now we'll move down to the consent agenda, and before we make a motion to approve the consent agenda, David, when we had voted
Here.
on the zoning board of appeals, Mr. Demento pointed out that we were making a mistake, and later we found out we did make a mistake, so all this is doing is correcting our mistake and putting everything in line.
Okay, and what was the mistake that we made?
I think we added, we added a
Number
year,
of years.
we added a year onto, one of the members.
We appointed her a year early is what we did.
Right.
Okay.
So just put it, we'd already did this last
already
year.
approved it.
We had already approved it. We
Okay,
didn't
so-
need to
okay,
add
so-
it again.
Got it.
That's all it
okay,
was, so
okay. I'm fine.
we're just doing this to stay off of social media. Okay, so
That really works.
can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Well, what about, are we gonna
You
have a
wanna take
discussion?
something out?
Well, yeah, I wanna take out the minutes,
Okay,
9:4 and 9:18.
you want to take out 9/4, 9/18?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number 5?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Select board time? Danielle?
Wait, do you want to
Oh.
talk about the one we pulled out? Or
Oh,
are we
minutes?
pulling it out not to talk about it?
No, we can talk about it. I was just,
I assume it got pulled out because there was discussion, not because.
no.
Well, that's how you
Yeah,
pull it
so-
out, because people haven't read it, and then we just.
No, I read it. I just really wanted to make a comment as it concerns the September 4th minutes. It would be my recommendation that we look to not have verbatim comments as part of our minutes. That would just be my recommendation.
We already have precedence when someone says they've come up and they've read a statement that they want their minutes, they want their statement in the minutes. So if we've already set precedence,
We set precedent as part of public comment. This would be a different.
that's right, this wasn't public comment.
No.
Mhm.
So,
So this is different.
so I think it's worth of a discussion.
You know, these are yours.
I can go, I prepared it, but I don't believe it's a very good precedent for our board to have verbatim minutes for.
I agree with that. You're not required to do it by law, and you will,
And because it's not public comment,
but you will encourage this type of practice, and I think it will be cumbersome, and I do think that it will inspire others to show up and respond in kind, and you'll continue to have, conflicts that may not get resolved constructively.
And just to state the obvious anyway, these are minutes, not transcriptions.
Not transcription,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
However, just to be really clear, if people come to public comment and they're reading from a sheet and they want their comments added
Yeah,
into.
we have now created that precedent, yes.
But it does sit within this board as to whether or not we can continue this, because while there was a precedent set for one meeting, that doesn't mean it has to be for
Well, this
all
isn't
meetings.
public comment.
Right.
No, understood,
Yeah.
but I'm just.
But even in the comments of
But even in-
public comments.
Yeah, it can be an attachment, but maybe those public comments are summarized and not written, transcribed verbatim, that's all.
I mean, if a person wanted to hear what any of us said, they can access all of the recordings through the town website and watch us all on Swampscott TV.
Well, why
That's how
would
you
I-
wanna spend your time.
But why would I want someone to have to go through that? I mean, I guess I look at it, I'm not worried about, I question, what's the problem if, now, how many people do we have come and say, this is my comments, and I
Right.
want these added? So it's pretty minimal, and I just feel like, if that's what you want, you're making a public comment, why, whatever, but we're not talking about that tonight, we're talking about
Right.
something different.
Right.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, as a point, as David's point, that at any, just because we set a precedent, at any time, it's our precedent. We reserve the right to change it, right, for any reason. If 100 people start coming to public comment, and they all want to give us their
Well-
their stuff, we can have this conversation again.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I would suggest that for 9.4, we go back and summarize the comments instead of approving these minutes today, to keep with kind of the way we've done things in the past. I mean, it's a little bit of 6 of one, half dozen of another, but at least that kind of keeps things in the spirit to which we've had them in the past, since these were not public comments. And so then I would recommend we focus on the 9:18 minutes. I don't think we have that issue there. Is that correct?
David, are you okay with 9:18?
Let me see.
It's a pretty mild meeting.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with 9:18.
Okay,
We still had, minutes were still 6 pages long.
all right, so could we have a motion, Danielle?
I mean, I'm not inclined to tell anybody what they can and can't say. So I use that example for myself as I do for other people. If I can say what I want to say, then I think everybody should be able to. I'm just not comfortable saying, no, for this one particular situation, we're going to say, no, we can't do what you're asking us to do. I personally don't feel comfortable saying that.
Okay, even though this is not, so this is not resident comment,
I think that's like, I think we're splitting hairs because it was said because it wasn't said at a certain time of a meeting. Somebody asked us to admit this as their statement or whatever, submit it as this person's statement. I'm not comfortable saying we can't do that. All of a sudden, we can't do that this one particular time. I just, people are allowed to say good or bad, what they want to say.
I don't disagree with you, but the minutes don't have to reflect every transcript of what people say, good or bad. The minutes are meant to give a summary of the.
True, but we have the luxury of looking at these minutes when we don't like, or when we want to edit it, right? If people on this board have problems with the way they're described in these minutes, we have the ability to edit them. Or we can say to Diane, I think this should be edited, or we have that privilege.
Right.
But people that show up and make comments don't have that privilege.
You're right there,
But they
but-
can say, I want this admitted, this is what I'm saying, you know, my response, or whatever it is. I just don't want to impose something that I couldn't impose on myself.
Yeah, I think the other point is when the person asked the question at the meeting, was the response, yes, we will accept them into the minutes? Because if that was the intention at the time,
Right.
to go back now on that does
Right.
feel disingenuous.
Mhm.
Where if they said, I would like this to happen, if one of us or any of us said it
No.
can happen, or
Right.
made representation that it could happen, I don't recall, I'd have to go back and watch.
Right.
But if we did, then we should include it, because they asked the question and they
And none of us said
trusted
no at the
that
time, or
answer.
even, I don't know if this person said it to Diane, I don't know, but we should have said at that
All of
point,
us,
no,
but we can
it's
watch.
not something we're gonna put into the
So why
public
don't we-
record, or whatever.
Would you be okay, would everybody be okay if we just tabled this and went back and did a little research? And then came back? So, is that okay with you, David?
It's fine.
So can we at least have a motion to approve, what was our other one?
9:18.
918.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Got all that, Diane? All right.
Nope, it's a good thing we have a transcript.
All right, so now,
Nice one, well played.
let's move to select board time. Doug, why don't you start? Oh, did you want to skip it because of the?
No,
wanna get-
mine's definitely not any longer than 25 minutes, so don't worry about it.
There are 4 other people at this table, so.
Of course I know that, that was the joke. So mine is all about requests for future meeting topics, okay? One's a little one for Climate Action Resilience Committee. Mary Ellen, we chatted by email about this a while ago. It's a
Yes.
short 10-minute thing, so if we could.
Okay, but if anybody wants things on the agenda, you have to send your information to Diane, because we were ready for you, but you hadn't sent your information in, and
Not you, just the committee.
Me?
any committee. Well, it was, you made a request, and we didn't have any documents, so we
Oh,
had to
I
put
didn't
you on
know
the
I
next
was, I
one.
didn't know they were ready to be entertained yet.
You made that request, it went right on there immediately.
Okay, okay, all right, I have to get used to that, all right, great. Well, therefore, then I might have even more, no. The financial summit,
Oh, no, Sean's working on that.
okay,
What does that mean exactly?
yeah, because now we're in October. So I know this isn't necessarily town administrator time right now, but you're welcome, as far as I'm concerned, to give a very,
Yeah, I had a meeting today
Brief
with
update
staff. We went over a number of slide decks that we are trying to pull together on expenditures and revenue and DOR data. We're reaching out to the Collins Center to see if we can have somebody facilitate this, but we've also reached out to Eric Kinsheft. He's a former CPA that we've worked with that could help us analyze and present some of the data. So staff are working to pull it together, and we anticipate that the next week we'll be sitting down with the school finance team and just going over some of the data that we've collected to try to frame a conversation about where we are, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going.
okay. And I'm going to assume there's a channel of communication with someone in the school department about the fact that we're pulling some data and this meeting's happening?
Well-
Yes, we've had some conversations. They certainly, are, they're busy. They, I think, have expressed that they feel as though having somebody independent present some of this data would be their preference. I certainly appreciate that. I think we all come to the table with our own unique perspectives, and having somebody that can objectively just look at the numbers and explain them.
So that would either be Collins or this Eric guy or whatever, okay. All right,
May I?
yeah.
I think the other important thing, though, is the data, what data is pulled, right? And I know you're saying there's only one true source of data, but I don't know that necessarily that is a shared sentiment. So
I
I
appreciate
just want
that,
to echo that cart horse conversation, that it's great that we're pulling the data, it's great that we're creating slide decks, but this process in and of itself, if it's not handled correctly, will set the tone for how the conversation happens, will set the tone for how collaborative it all becomes. So I understand the school is very busy, but I encourage the school financial team to be involved now so that this doesn't become an issue when we all sit down at the table because, either the data was pulled incorrectly or misconstrued or all these things that we can't fix when we get to the table, so.
I'm happy to have them involved now. We've reached out to them weeks ago to try to get them involved, so. But there's, we
Encouraging
pull out
them
all
to
the
use.
chairs, they can help run through the numbers and context them. Katie, I totally understand that, they may have unique numbers that justify their position on certain things. I use the state data, the October 1st reports, different things, because it standardizes where Swampscott is with 351 other cities and towns per capita expenditure on every municipal item. And that's just one set of data.
Right.
And so that benchmarks us, and then we can kind of take the unique perspectives of every department head and every individual that works in a critical position and say, but how does it really fit? And are there unique things about Swampscott that 3 square mile town that is different than, a town that's similar to us that's, has 15 square miles? I mean, there's lots of things that qualify these points, but I think we have to start with a baseline.
Yeah. I just don't want to get to the table and argue about the data instead of arguing about, or conversing about solutions.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying, it's really imperative that we all come to the table for the financial summit at the same place and in the right mindset so that we are putting the community first and our students first to collaborate on solutions to get both the municipality and the school to a point where it feels like we've collaborated in a real way and come to the table compromising with each other and not just arguing over the slide deck.
Yeah, I'm really struggling here to make sure that we get this right.
Right.
Do we have, is it appropriate, I don't want to suggest at this phase, like some joint meeting between us and the school committee or, but like, is it appropriate for either the superintendent or the
Tri-chairs.
We have-
chairs, like,
we-
where are we ensuring that we've got this teed up the right place? Because I know you started off saying Sean's taking care of that, so like,
Well, I'll answer it for
at
you.
least,
So Sean is working on his stuff.
yeah.
The, Sean, myself, and the Finance Committee Chair are meeting tomorrow so that we could make sure we know what dates. And then I'm answering an email from the Chair of the School Committee as far as when the tri-chairs can meet. So we're going to be having a meeting with the superintendent, the business manager, Amy, our finance director. So we already have that, we don't have the date set, but we'll have a date set before Thursday.
Great, and so like ideally, maybe you guys would have that meeting before our next select board meeting so that we would have kind of
Yes.
something to say, you all have met, you've got kind of agreement on, here's the data we're pulling, or here's the outside person we're using, or something like that, so that we know everyone's been engaged.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that would be terrific. Thank you. Thank you. The other two things, which I can write to you too, but just for everyone, Danielle and I have been talking, getting a joint, we had this a ways back about resiliency, and harbor and water and climate action, and, we've had some conversations about the pier, and we have stuff obviously about water and sewer. I think we need a collective kind of update. Update from water and sewer, all the testing that we just heard about tonight, kind of summarized, what's really happening with the pier. There was a public meeting about that, we had some response to that. I don't think we've kind of collected all that together. We have a grant that we applied for, one which we did not get, municipal vulnerability. We have another one out that we're waiting on. we put some money aside through ARPA. So I think just collectively, we need kind of to come back together and say, like, what's our go-forward plan here?
I think what we need to do is we need to take, this is what I'd like to look into, or I'd like to arrange, is to have the chairs of the committees that have that much synergy together and come into a room and sit down and really have an open conversation as far as what are the future goals are going to be, especially as it pertains to as it pertains to grants, because often one committee doesn't know what the other committee's doing, and if we have Marzi there and we start to figure out exactly what are all our goals, I think that's going to help. So I would agree with that too.
So that, I'm asking for an agenda topic where we bring those three chairs together to have that, an update and their kind of go-forward plans, so we can kind of observe all together, like what those are, and make sure they're coordinated.
We had discussed like a grants database, not of what exists for us to apply to, but what we have actually applied to. That,
Yeah, I have a list of all the grants that we've received over the last
and then who sort of
7 years.
who is applying for those grants? Because I don't know, is Marzi taking all the communication from all the boards and
No,
committees?
typically every department head has a number of grants that they can apply for, rec, police, fire, town, we all, there's a lot of folks looking for grants. Now, every grant that we apply for, over $50,000 comes to the select board, so we're kind of funneling them.
So we have a
Through
little
the
bit more
board right now.
visibility.
Yeah, but that's only at the municipal level. Like if Resiliency wants to apply for a grant that's for $50,000, they don't have to come to us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
committee,
they
I mean,
do.
oh, I'm
Any
sorry, they
grant.
do, but I guess outside of our boards and committees, if other town, yeah, okay, to your point.
I mean, the
Yep.
city of Lynn is looking to apply for a $200,000 grant. I'm in a meeting on Friday, and I've already let the mayor know, I gotta come back to the select board and ask you for permission to even, work with them on that, because that's your prerogative as the governing body. That's a policy. Like, do we want to be part of regional grants? Do we want to be, previously, those are things that frankly, this board didn't, want to have a formal vote on, but, we're gonna make sure that you have that role.
Yeah, I just don't want to be competing against each other. I think we want to be collaborating with one another. And if there was a central database to keep track of the grants as they were being approved by us and as the committees were working on them, then, either synergetic committees could reach out and say, hey, we think this is going to help you with that. Here's the data. Like if water sewer saw something that they could be helpful with to Resiliency, they could send something over. But that doesn't exist right now because we just don't have a place where they all live that's accessible to boards and committees.
So we've talked about this as a team, and, there's a real concern, these grants are all competitive. They're very competitive, and so when we kind of share some of that information, the concern is that we're, even locally, other communities are going to start to compete. They're going to start to get a sense of what we're going after, and there's just a,
Well, if that's like a confidential document, why would other cities
it's
see it?
not confidential, it's public, like.
But I'm saying if we made it
Yeah,
an
I mean,
in-house
if we made it
document, why would
accessible
it
by the
be something
chairs.
they could
Yeah, I
access?
don't, we can pull it together. Like, we have a list of these grants. I'm happy to share with
Like,
them.
we could have quarterly, like, I'd like to have quarterly meetings with the chairs of committees that do have, serious things in common, and then just to have an update of what's going on, and
Yeah, we want to incentivize these committees and
Yeah.
frankly, these department heads to apply for every grant that they can think of. There's all sorts of, like Doug's conversation tonight about the $5.2 billion. There's got to be some opportunity there for the town to shake out some of those dollars and apply it to a number of housing initiatives. And so we have a number of committees that could help us, do some of that work. And we're strategizing on some of that stuff, but,
okay, so,
If there are many committees that are applying for grants, but they don't all have the same bandwidth,
Right.
then, maybe they could pass the torch on to a like-minded committee to say, hey, we found this, and we don't have the time or energy to apply for it right now because we're focusing on X.
For example,
Yeah.
the Harbor Waterfront,
So those chairs met last week with MVP
typically the,
Awesome.
part of getting grants is not getting one, you know, and just sticking to it, because
Okay.
we will get that grant.
To your point, Katie, I just wanted to say, on the last Harbor Waterfront meeting that I was at a couple weeks ago, they were talking about grants that they were going after or going to go after. You know, we want to make sure that maybe climate knows about that, or, you know, that the other committees, maybe sewer and water infrastructure, that they're working together, right? If we know, you know, Marcy happened to be at that meeting, so she was able to advise and talk about it. But we want all the committees to have that same access, that same opportunity. I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But if they don't know what the others are going after, you know, you could get into a situation where you're operating kind of in a vacuum, right? So.
Doug, are you finished?
I'm done.
David?
Yeah, over the weekend, there was a veteran suicide prevention 5K run walk down at the VFW. There were probably 70 or 80 participants. It was a good day. It was the first ever veteran suicide prevention run walk in town. Hopefully, this is an annual event, and hopefully we can continue to build on this, and certainly have many more members of the community and the surrounding area at the next one. But you know, it was a great day to be out there and be out with the veterans and walk for a great cause.
Did you win?
My son finished second
And fourth.
and fourth.
You don't forget about the others.
And they could have won.
Next year.
Gives you something to strive for.
I actually didn't have anything to say, but something came up when we were just having a conversation about the consent agenda involving edits to the minutes. And generally, like my own personal rule of thumb, I try not to edit the minutes unless they are factually inaccurate. And that's because the minutes are meant to be Diane's reflection of what occurred. She does consult a transcript and views sometimes when she doesn't remember information. And so, you know, I encourage everyone to sort of follow similar guidelines where we're not embedding ourselves in a hindsight 2020 situation, or, you know, changing sort of the phraseology of something unless it is inaccurate. Because to Danielle's point, we have an advantage that others don't. And when other people are participating in the meetings, whether it be people we invite or public comment or even the town administrator, he doesn't get to look back and say, that's what I said or what I didn't say. We have the right to say, that's not what I recall Sean said or didn't say. But so just remembering that that's a privilege we have and not to abuse it.
I don't have that privilege. I oftentimes have to sit quiet, and I have to listen to things that are untrue and unfair, and it's difficult to see that contained in minutes. Sometimes it's their opinion, and they have the right to have it there, but when it becomes that explicit, it hurts employees, it harms my character, it harms the character of my department heads and the people that I'm here to protect. And if you, as a board, let that happen, I feel as though that's a responsibility that you're not being good about. There's more to it, but I just want to put that out there. This can be weaponized, and it can be used to really undermine the good faith responsibilities that we have to administer the responsibilities of this town.
Are you finished?
I am, thank you.
Danielle?
So, to Doug's point, I feel like the financial summit has become a mirage in the desert, because I feel like I hear about it at every meeting, and I hear the same things. It's like Groundhog Day. Did we talk to the schools? Did we reach out? Are we going about the data the right way? Do we have a date? I mean, we're at October 1st. I've heard about this thing for probably 4 or 5 months, and we're no further advanced than we were with this thing. And I'm really concerned that after what happened at town meeting and the very vocal situation we had with the school department, that we have made no progress at all, in my view, in reaching out to them, collaborating with them, trying to get to the heart of what we need to do for next year's budget season. And we're still at square one. There's been no progress. And I just think that's not the way to do it. I mean, there was a real concern at town meeting about budgets and the collaboration between school and town, and we have not really done anything to change it, to improve it, to further along that process. And we use this financial summit as, you know, potentially something that would like bring them all together, and we've made no progress on it, and that's disappointing. And I hear the same thing, that our staff is working on it, they're pulling data, they're doing this, they're reaching out to the schools. The schools have heard nothing, right? So when do we move forward here? And how do we do it, right? Because we're all just sitting here, and Doug brought that up way back at town meeting, right after, right? And he's, you know, he's still asking the same questions, and I have to agree, like, it seems like a mirage in the desert, like it's not gonna come to fruition. And we need it to, you know, we really need to have a conversation. So thank you for bringing that up, Doug. I think it's a valid concern. You know, to your point, Sean, about minutes and comments, whoever wants to come here and say, whatever resident wants to come here and say whatever is on their mind is entitled to do so. And I want to hear it. I always want to hear it, good or bad. Because unless you hear the bad, you're never going to grow. There's no growth unless you hear what you can do better, right? And sometimes that's not in the most perfect form, but we set ourselves up for that when we took these seats and you took this position. Unfortunately, you're the head of a town in a very public position. It comes with the territory. Yeah, ideally, you know, people won't come up here and say disparaging things or be, you know, annoyed, but by the time they get here, they're probably so aggravated with having attempted maybe to solve a problem and it hasn't happened, that, yeah, you know, sometimes it's on us to find that answer, right? So I'm not inclined to fix edits of minutes. What I say is what I say. I stand by it any time. That's what I'm here to do. And I don't feel like it's appropriate to censor or adjust or, you know, make something look like it's anything different than what it is, right? People have the right to come and say whatever they want to say, and we have to hear it, you know. But again, it's an opportunity for growth depending on how you look at it. You can look at it and be defensive and say, people are attacking me, they're attacking my staff. Well, maybe there's a problem. Maybe there is something that we need to fix internally. Maybe there's something wrong with the department that we're not looking at, we're just ignoring and glossing over because it's too inconvenient to address. So I think that there's value in listening to what people have to say, and I'm not afraid to do that, so.
My turn. I would like to thank Nathan Hint, Nate Weisheim, and Mr. Joe Dulett for putting on this fine show here tonight. It's always appreciated. And I do want to give a little bit, I've fallen behind on giving my updates from my committees, and I just want to get back to that a little bit. The Retirement Board met this week, and their first quarter performance in real estate was down by quite a bit, and they're working with their new advisors, Wainwright, on evaluating their best investment strategy. Let's see now. They have also been tasked with putting together 4 different funding schedules to consider increasing the COLA base by a couple points, and by doing that, they're also looking at extending the funding schedule and reducing the impact on the town's operating budget. This is something that's pretty serious that I think all of you should really look at. The current base is 14, and it has a 5% increase to the funding schedule. Their next meeting is October 29th at 8 a.m. And you're all welcome to show. We can't sit and chit-chat. We just have to keep any questions to their chair. So they would love to see everyone on October 29th, 8 a.m.
Extending that schedule could save the operating budget hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that would
Bravo
be
that they're considering that.
a real lifeline for some of the financial issues that we're dealing with. It's a structural change.
Oh, well, they're looking for something in return.
They are, but, you know, I said to them last year, look, work with us.
We all said that.
Mhm.
Or I think we all said that.
So I still have the floor.
Sorry.
The Board of Assessors, as we know, we have a new assessor in. They also have, per the recommendation of the DOR, They have access to Assess Pro, and they will be starting to get their information together for their tax classifications. On solid waste, the chair wanted to make sure everybody know that their minutes are up to date. The Pumpkin Smash event will be on November 3rd at Phillips Park, 9 to 12. They ran some quick math on whether or not it was going to be really financially advantageous to us to have composting for every household. And right now, it is not financially advantageous, but they're going to continue to look at that. That's a goal that I asked Wayne to see what we could do to increase composting. They're trying to start a survey of apartment and condominium complexes to understand what recycling services are being offered to their residents. They've been slow to get that going, but they're working on that. They've reached out to Sean and Jeff to try to get some help with that project, and they will be at the farmers market through October. This has proven to be a great outreach opportunity this summer. Collectively, as we talk to hundreds of residents, and we receive a lot of feedback. So one more thing he wanted me to, household hazardous waste drop-off day is Wednesday, October 16th, from 4 to 7 at the Marblehead Transfer Station. And that wraps up my comments.
And metal and styrofoam waste drop-off is the last
That's our last Saturday.
standing last Saturday.
Yes.
It's always.
That's always standing.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so with that, can we have a motion
So
to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, Joe.
Good night.